Elena sat stiffly in the chair across from Gregory Whitmore, her hands folded tightly on her lap. The room was quiet except for the soft hum of the air conditioner. She had prepared so thoroughly for this moment, her resume polished to perfection, her answers rehearsed, but none of it seemed to matter now. Gregory leaned back in his chair, letting out a slow sigh as he held up her resume between two fingers like it was something dirty. "Ms. Carter," he began, his voice dripping with condescension, "I've reviewed your application multiple times." He paused, looking down at her with an unreadable expression that made her stomach churn. "But I'm afraid we don't see someone like you fitting into our corporate culture." His words hit her like a punch to the chest. Someone like her. She didn't need him to spell it out. She knew exactly what he meant. It wasn't about her qualifications. It never really was. Her degree from one of the top universities, her glowing recommendations, her years of hard work, all of it dismissed because she didn't look like the people already sitting in those boardrooms. Elena's jaw tightened, but she refused to let him see her cry. Instead, she stood slowly, grabbing her bag without saying a word. As she turned toward the door, Gregory added casually, almost mockingly, "It's not personal, Ms. Carter, just business." She froze mid-step, her hand gripping the strap of her bag until her knuckles turned white. Without turning around, she muttered under her breath, just loud enough for him to hear, "You'll regret this." Gregory blinked, caught off guard by the quiet certainty in her voice. For a brief second, doubt flickered across his face, but then he shook his head dismissively and went back to shuffling papers on his desk. Once outside, Elena walked briskly through the bustling city streets, trying to hold herself together, but the weight of rejection pressed down on her shoulders, making each step heavier than the last. Tears blurred her vision as memories flashed in her mind. Late nights spent coding while her classmates partied, professors praising her innovative ideas, mentors encouraging her to dream bigger. All of it felt meaningless now, reduced to scraps in Gregory's wastebasket. Later that afternoon, Elena found herself sitting at a small coffee shop, staring blankly into her untouched cup. A familiar voice broke through her thoughts. "Elena, is that you?" She looked up to see Jamal Thompson, an old friend from college who had become a journalist known for exposing corruption. His sharp eyes softened when he noticed the sadness etched on her face. "What happened?" he asked, sliding into the seat across from her. Elena hesitated before speaking, unsure if she wanted to relive the humiliation. But something about Jamal's steady gaze gave her courage. "I had an interview today," she said finally, her voice trembling. "The manager tore up my resume right in front of me, said I wouldn't fit their corporate culture." Jamal frowned, leaning forward. "That doesn't sound right. Do you know anything about Pinnacle Solutions hiring practices?" She shook her head, confused. "Why?" He lowered his voice, glancing around the cafe. "Word is, they've got a history of turning away qualified candidates who don't match their demographic preferences. Sounds like discrimination to me." Elena felt a surge of anger mixed with despair. Was this what she was up against? Not just one biased man, but an entire system designed to keep people like her out. That evening, she called her mother, Elena Carter, needing to hear her voice. "Mom, I don't know how much longer I can do this," she admitted, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Every time I try to move forward, someone finds a way to push me back." Evelyn listened quietly, then spoke with the same firmness that had guided Elena through every challenge in life. "Baby girl, listen to me. When they knock you down, build yourself back stronger. You've got too much talent and heart to let anyone dim your light." Her words stayed with Elena long after they hung up. They weren't just comforting. They were a call to action. If the world wouldn't make space for her, she would create her own path. And maybe, just maybe, she'd force them to regret ever underestimating her. Elena sat across from yet another hiring manager, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. The interview had been going well, or so she thought. The man smiled warmly as he leaned back in his chair. "You are incredibly skilled, Ms. Carter," he said, nodding approvingly. "But I'm not sure you'd fit into our corporate culture here." Her heart sank. Not again. She forced a polite smile, masking the frustration bubbling beneath the sea surface. "Could you clarify what you mean by fit?" she asked, her tone calm but firm. He hesitated, clearly caught off guard by her question. "Well, it's just, we have a certain way of doing things here. Team dynamics are important." She nodded slowly, understanding all too well what he wasn't saying. It wasn't about skills or experience. It was about whether she looked and sounded like everyone else in the room. Still, she thanked him politely before leaving, biting her tongue until she reached her car, where she finally let out a shaky breath. The next interview wasn't any better. This time, the woman across the table complimented Elena on how articulate she was. "You speak so clearly," the interviewer said with an awkward laugh. "It's refreshing." Elena forced a tight smile, though inside she seethed. Was it really that shocking for someone like her to string together coherent sentences? By the third interview, she didn't even make it past the introductions. As soon as the hiring manager learned she'd attended a historically black college, his demeanor shifted. His questions became clipped, dismissive. Within minutes, he wrapped up the meeting, muttering something vague about moving forward with other candidates. Each rejection chipped away at her confidence piece by piece. At first, she told herself it was just bad luck, a few bad apples in an otherwise fair system. But deep down, she knew better. These weren't isolated incidents. They were patterns, symptoms of a larger problem. Every door that slammed shut felt heavier than the last, trapping her in a cycle of disappointment and doubt. Later that week, Elena found herself at a networking event, sipping lukewarm coffee while scanning the crowded room. She didn't expect much. These events usually left her feeling more invisible than connected. But then a familiar face approached her. Marcus Reed stood there, his calm demeanor instantly putting her at ease. "Elena Carter, right?" he asked, extending a hand. "We met briefly at a tech conference last year." She nodded, shaking his hand. "Nice to see you again, Marcus." They struck up a conversation, and when Elena mentioned her struggles finding work, Marcus listened intently. After a moment, he sighed, his expression darkening. "I know exactly how you feel," he admitted. "I used to work at Pinnacle Solutions. Gregory Whitmore fired me months ago because I refused to falsify client reports to inflate their profits." Elena's eyes widened. "What do you mean?" Marcus lowered his voice, glancing around to ensure no one was listening. "Pinnacle's polished image is a facade. They've been cutting corners for years, embezzling funds, covering up harassment lawsuits, discriminating against employees who don't fit their mold. I tried to blow the whistle, but they silenced me." A spark ignited within Elena. If what Marcus said was true, Gregory's empire wasn't as untouchable as it seemed. For the first time in weeks, she felt a flicker of hope. Maybe this wasn't just about her. It was about exposing the truth, holding people like Gregory accountable. Sarah Collins called Elena later that week, her voice brimming with concern. "Hey, Elena, I heard you've been having trouble finding work. Let me help. I know some people who might be interested in your skill set." Elena hesitated but eventually agreed, sending over her resume. Days turned into weeks with no response, and Elena couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something was off. Then Jamal reached out, his tone unusually serious. "I did some digging," he said. "Turns out Sarah sabotaged your application. She made sure it got buried so she could secure a promotion for herself." Elena stared at her phone, stunned. Betrayal sliced through her chest, sharper than any rejection letter ever could. Sarah wasn't just a former co-worker. She was someone Elena had trusted, someone she'd considered a friend. And now, she realized, Sarah was part of the problem too. Alone in her apartment that night, Elena replayed every interaction with Sarah in her mind, searching for signs she'd missed. Anger gave way to despair as she wondered if she'd ever escape the web of prejudice and betrayal surrounding her. Was it even possible to break free? Just when Elena thought she couldn't take another setback, an email arrived from Daniel Park, CEO of a small but innovative startup. He praised her portfolio and offered her a remote contract position. emphasizing his commitment to diversity and inclusion in tech. For the first time in months, Elena allowed herself to feel a glimmer of optimism. Under Daniel's mentorship, Elena flourished. He encouraged her creativity, pushing her to think outside the box. Together, they developed groundbreaking software that streamlined data analysis processes, earning rave reviews from early adopters. Industry influencers began taking notice, and soon Elena's name started appearing in articles and podcasts. Gregory Whitmore noticed too. At first, he dismissed her success as a fluke, convinced she wouldn't last long in the competitive tech world. But as her star continued to rise, envy gnawed at him. Late at night, he scrolled through news articles about Elena's achievements, his jaw tightening with each headline. How dare she succeed after everything he'd done to crush her? Unbeknownst to Gregory, his jealousy was setting the stage for a reckoning neither of them could foresee. Elena woke up to a notification on her phone, a social media post accusing her of plagiarizing the groundbreaking software that had brought her so much acclaim. Her stomach dropped as she scrolled through the comments, each one more vicious than the last. "Typical," one user wrote. "She probably stole it from someone smarter." Another chimed in. "This is why we need stricter hiring standards." Her hands trembled as she read further, the accusations piling on like weights pressing down on her chest. What made it worse was that some of the doubters were people she'd considered allies, former colleagues, acquaintances, even a mentor who had praised her work just weeks ago. Now they questioned her integrity, their skepticism fueled by Gregory's leaked fake evidence. Elena tried to defend herself online, posting screenshots of her development process and early drafts of the software. But the court of public opinion had already turned against her. Hate comments flooded her feed, calling her everything from incompetent to dishonest. The sheer volume of negativity overwhelmed her, leaving her paralyzed with self-doubt. For the first time, she wondered if maybe they were right, if she wasn't good enough, if she'd somehow imagined her own accomplishments. That night, alone in her apartment, Elena sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the wall. Tears streamed down her face as she contemplated giving up. Every rejection, every insult, every betrayal came rushing back, threatening to drown her. Was it worth fighting anymore? Or should she walk away, let Gregory win, and spare herself the pain? The plagiarism allegations led to a court hearing, where Elena found herself standing before Judge Margaret Hayes. A no-nonsense black woman in her late 50s, Judge Hayes carried an air of authority that commanded respect. As Elena recounted her story, the rejections, the sabotage, the false accusations, Judge Hayes listened intently, her sharp eyes narrowing slightly. When Gregory's lawyer presented the fabricated evidence, Judge Hayes didn't flinch. Instead, she leaned forward, addressing the courtroom with a steely gaze. "Ms. Carter has raised serious concerns about systemic bias in this case," she said firmly. "I am ordering an independent audit of Pinnacle Solutions operations. If there is wrongdoing here, it will come to light." Days later, the results of the audit sent shockwaves through the industry. Pinnacle Solutions was exposed for years of illegal activity, embezzlement schemes designed to inflate profits, harassment lawsuits swept under the rug, discriminatory hiring practices targeting candidates like Elena. All roads led back to Gregory Whitmore, whose polished facade crumbled under the weight of undeniable proof. For Elena, the revelations were both vindicating and infuriating. She felt a surge of determination, channeling her anger into action. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about dismantling the system that had tried to destroy her. With the damning evidence in hand, she prepared to take her fight public, determined to ensure no one else would suffer the way she had. Gregory's world unraveled faster than he could have imagined. Scandal after scandal dominated headlines, dragging his name and Pinnacle Solutions through the mud. Investors pulled out, clients severed ties, and employees fled the sinking ship. Within months, Gregory went from being a powerful CEO to a disgraced nobody, reduced to selling off possessions just to keep a roof over his head. Desperation drove him to do something unthinkable. One rainy afternoon, he showed up at Elena's office unannounced, drenched and disheveled. When she saw him standing there, her breath caught in her throat. He looked nothing like the smug man who had torn up her resume all those months ago. "Elena," he stammered, his voice trembling. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but please, I need a job, any position. I'll do whatever it takes." Elena stared at him, her heart pounding. For a moment, she considered letting him squirm longer, savoring the reversal of power. But instead, she stepped closer, her voice cold and steady. "You told me once that someone like me wouldn't fit into your corporate culture," she said, her words slicing through the tension like a knife. "Well, guess what? Someone like you doesn't fit here either." Gregory flinched, his face pale with shame. Without another word, he turned and walked away, disappearing into the rain. Elena watched him go, feeling a mix of triumph and sorrow. Justice had been served, but the scars remained. She thought about the battles she'd fought, not just against Gregory, but against a system designed to break her. And yet she stood tall, knowing she had prevailed despite the odds. In that moment, Elena realized something profound. Victory wasn't just about winning. It was about surviving, growing stronger, and refusing to let hatred define her. She had faced rock bottom and risen above it, proving to herself and the world that resilience could conquer even the deepest injustices. Elena was reviewing emails at her desk when one caught her attention. It was from Rachel Whitmore, Gregory's teenage daughter. Her heart skipped a beat as she opened it, unsure of what to expect. "Dear Ms. Carter," the message began. "I know my dad hurt you in ways I can't fully understand. I'm so sorry for everything he's done, but I also want to thank you for showing me that strength isn't about power or control. Watching how you handled all this, it made me realize what real courage looks like." Elena leaned back in her chair, her emotions swirling. She thought about ignoring the email, brushing it aside like so many other painful reminders of Gregory's betrayal. But then Rachel added something that stopped her cold. "You're my role model now. Please let me learn from you." The words hit Elena harder than she expected. She remembered being Rachel's age, searching for someone who looked like her and had walked a similar path. Someone to show her that success was possible despite the odds. After days of deliberation, Elena replied, agreeing to mentor Rachel. Forgiveness wasn't easy, but offering grace felt like planting a seed of change, not just for Rachel, but for the future. A few weeks later, Mia Torres, a popular YouTuber, known for amplifying marginalized voices, reached out to Elena with an idea. "Your story needs to be told," Mia said during their call. "People need to see what you've overcome, and what still needs to change." Together, they created a documentary titled Rising Above, the Elena Carter Story. Through interviews, archival footage, and animations, the film exposed Gregory's crimes while celebrating Elena's resilience. When it premiered online, the response was overwhelming. Comments poured in from viewers sharing their own experiences with workplace racism, thanking Elena for giving them hope. Inspired by the documentary's reach, Elena accepted an invitation to speak at a prestigious TED event. Standing on stage under bright lights, she took a deep breath before beginning. "When I started my journey, I didn't think I'd make it this far," she admitted, her voice steady yet filled with emotion. "But every rejection, every insult, every moment of doubt taught me something important. Systems built on inequality will crumble if we refuse to conform to them." Her speech ended with a rallying cry. "We must break these systems, not just for ourselves, but for those who will come after us. Because when we build better futures, we create space for everyone to thrive." The audience erupted into applause, moved by her authenticity and determination. Months passed, and Elena found herself reflecting on everything she'd endured. As much as she wanted to move forward, she knew she couldn't leave others behind. Drawing inspiration from her late mother Evelyn's wisdom, she founded a nonprofit organization called Pathways to STEM. Its mission was simple yet powerful: provide resources, mentorship, and opportunities for marginalized professionals entering science, technology, engineering, and math fields. At the launch event, surrounded by friends, family, and supporters, Elena dedicated the initiative to Evelyn. "My mom always told me, when they knock you down, build yourself back stronger," she said, her voice breaking slightly. "This nonprofit is her legacy, and mine. Together, we'll ensure no one has to face the barriers I did." As the crowd cheered, Elena felt a profound sense of closure. Later that evening, as she sorted through mail at home, an anonymous envelope caught her eye. Inside was Gregory's shredded resume, the very document he'd torn up during their first meeting. Someone had painstakingly taped it back together, smoothing out the jagged edges. On the back, written in shaky handwriting, were the words, "You were right. I regret everything." Elena stared at the note, her mind racing. Was it from Gregory, or perhaps Rachel seeking redemption for her father's sins? She didn't know, and maybe it didn't matter. What mattered was the vindication it represented, the acknowledgement of everything she'd fought for. Holding the fragile piece of paper in her hands, Elena smiled softly. The road had been long and painful, but she had emerged stronger, wiser, and more determined than ever. This wasn't just her victory, it was a beacon of hope for anyone, daring to dream beyond the limits imposed by prejudice. If this story resonated with you, chances are it stirred something deep inside. Hope, frustration, or maybe even a little fire to make a change. Let's keep that spark alive. Share your thoughts in the comments. Tell us how Elena's journey inspired you, or what battles you've faced and overcome. If someone you know needs to hear this message of resilience and justice, pass it along. It could be the encouragement they need today. And if you're ready to stand with us as we share more stories like this, hit that like button and subscribe. Together, we can turn inspiration into action.